Hey, welcome back to another Lumiyuki mini video. This week we'll be taking a look at how I approached my Kings of War diorama bases for my units. You can use this guide to make your own Kings of War multi-bases or to create any other kinds of dioramas and or larger bases. This is my first step into painting guides and I'm still taking a safer route of using photos instead of live video footage. One reason for this is that I don't have a suitable video setup yet. And another is that I want to make this guide more useful for those who have less time and or patience to follow a long painting video, and instead you can listen to this in the background and look at the pictures when needed. I've also uploaded this guide on my website in text and picture form, so you can look at it after this video if you need to. You will need the following materials for this project: cork sheets, glue, grass flock and tufts, moss flock, aka muddy ground or a similar earth or muddy texture, Mournfang brown, scrag brown, deathclaw brown, dawnstone and minstratum grey, ulfun grey or similar paints and textures. I mostly use the official Mantic plastic movement tray and multi-bases from the shop, and they are awesome. However, for the larger bases, I decided to take a do-it-yourself and save some money approach, because it's quite easy and the end result is nearly as good. And perhaps it's something that would benefit you, the viewer, as well. So let's take a look at how you make a base first. What you need are the bases and preferably some cardboard to support them. I've used the back of an old Warhammer box. What you should do is glue all the bases together from the sides, and after that glue them to the cardboard and cut out the extra parts out. I've used green stuff to cover the gaps in the bases when needed. You can use something else or glue a second piece of cardboard on top of the bases as well. The main point is that you won't be able to see any gaps in the final result. And ta-da! Here we have the base ready to be worked on. Now you can do whatever you want with them. And that brings me to the main part of the video, a guide for the base I've created for my army. It's a simple base that uses parts that you can find in a hobby store quite easily, and anything you don't like, you are free to replace or remove. Since it's a dwarf army, and because it always looks good when you elevate your miniatures on the base, I've used cork to create rocks of different sizes, heights, and shapes. It looks more interesting and more natural that way. I used cork sheets of varying thickness and cut them up randomly. I used super glue to glue them together. Make sure they glue properly. Putting some weight on top can be helpful. After this, I used the mud paste, aka muddy ground, to create the earth and to attach the rocks to the ground. I also spread some on the rocks to make sure they don't look too flat. And with that, the bases are ready to be painted. Undercut the bases with your chosen paint. It's important that the ground and the rocks have some common colors to tie them together. That's why I start off with the same medium dark brown for both. Mournfang brown in my case. From this point, the rocks and the ground will diverge in color. I added more and more grey to the original brown and added new layers to the rock, leaving the central point the brownest. I used an airbrush, but you can use a brush or a dry brush just as well. Just keep adding color to a smaller area as you progress with more grey in the mix. The first mix was 2:1 Mournfang brown and dawnstone. The second one 1:2. Next, I used a pure dawnstone closer to the edges of the rocks and add a little bit to the central part as well. But the grey should be most saturated towards the edges. Add a lighter grey, and minstratum grey in my case, closer to the edge, and also dry brush the central parts a little bit more. And then I used a brush to add the final edge highlight of ulfun grey. As for the mud, I took the photos out of order, so the rocks are missing their edge highlights here. But I highlighted the original brown with a lighter brown, scrag brown in my case, and a final lighter brown that picks up all the details, deathclaw brown. Again, concentrate the lightest parts towards the outer edges, further away from the rocks, and pick up the details that the mud has created. From here on, add some greenery. Use any flocks you prefer. I've used some grass flock that I covered about half of the mud with. Place some longer grass tufts here and there as well. The picture doesn't look good because the PVA glue was still drying. Since the rocks looked a bit too bare, I also added some moss on the rocks. First, I sprayed some thinned down green on the rocks, here and there, and then I glued some moss-looking flock on top of the greener parts on the rock. Finish off the base with a matte varnish, and don't forget to paint the edges, preferably black. And here we go, a final version of the base that in my opinion looks quite good and natural. Furthermore, it doesn't use any tricky materials and doesn't require too much skill to pull off well. And remember, there will also be a bunch of miniatures on top of the base, so any imperfections will be well hidden. Thank you very much for watching the video. For more videos like these, subscribe and come back next week. I'm looking forward to creating more painting guides. Please tell me what you thought about this type of guide. I've also uploaded a version of this guide to my website, www.lumiyukimini.com. While there, check out my other work and why not order a commission project and I can make cool bases for your miniatures.